Hello and welcome to episode 2 in the 2019-2020 season review. This second episode we'll be looking at the first half of November. So I mentioned in the previous episode, this is where things start to heat up. I'm so excited to start getting stuck into this stuff. Even looking back at what it was now, it's just, it was mouthwatering. And I don't think it's disappointed as the seasons went on. We're going to be looking at this as though we're thinking about it at the time. So we will obviously have some forward references. We know what's happened there. But as best we can, we're going to be honest about what our opinions were, what we thought at the time, even if we fancied them for anything at Cheltenham, because I know there's a couple in here that I got wrong, but they'll be mentioned because we're honest. And then, we'll go through like that. We'll keep it very friendly. Again, which we've mentioned in the first episode, this is the first of us going through these races in like a proper in-depth bit. I have done the video recording as well, so if YouTube would allow me, if I can get away with bodging it in there, then the video for the courses that are in this episode will start in a moment. If it doesn't, then you can find it on my Facebook page. I'll put a link to that. And if it does, and you don't want to watch it, you can skip a few minutes. So here goes.
It's Langadan doing the better into the closing stages. 2 out of 2, Langadan beats into second place Maria Magdalena. Nordano back in third, ran gallantly in defeat. Fourth was what will be. Guitar Pete in front, now shown the whip, bounds away by 3 lengths over Happy Diva and Demi Sang. But he's got a fine record in this race, Guitar Pete. He wins it again. It's Ballyoptic showing in front by 3 lengths over Elegant Escape. And Ballyoptic staying on strongly towards the line to win the Bet365 Charlie Hall Chase for Sam and Nigel Twiston Davis. Ballyoptic wins the big one.
Side, and Daylight Katie from Jeremy's Flame up towards the line. Daylight Katie, double Gordon Elliott. This time it's Davy Russell. Daylight Katie beats Jeremy's Flame. And Course Sublime, the Triumph Hurdle runner-up, is back to winning ways in an impressive fashion too. Winsy's down. Cocoa Beach second. Triplicate third. Western Victory 4. Laureate 5.
Heading towards the last then, on the left with the noseband, Diego de Charmil. On the right, the white face. Oh, Diego de Charmil has hampered. Oh, they've got through. They've got through the fence, and in front is Diego de Charmil, but the Champagne at Tara, the grey, and Clondal Castle, the red jacket, are there. In sight of the line, Diego de Charmil is still just about in front, and he gets to the line and wins. Well, Diego de Charmil, some way to win a run. Gumball been in front the whole way, heads up towards the line. He quickened on the home turn. He's a little weary late on. Bryony trying to catch him on Red Force 1, but Gumball, just lasted to Red Force 1.
It is one of the most popular mares in training. Lady Buttons out in front, as she so often does. She's idling close home, and Indefatigable once again is rallying back to try and challenge her, but she won't make it. Lady Buttons will for the second time running in this race.
It's Road to Respect who's looking for back-to-back Ladbroke champion chases, and he's going to do it. It's another one for Jigginstown. Noel Mead and Sean Flanagan have taken the Ladbroke stock.
To the far side, but the World's End is going to prove too strong. He's making every yard of the running here in the Bet365 hurdle, and pushed out towards the line. The World's End gets his career back on track.
Vindication at the last. What a leap! Oh, touchdown, 6 or 7 lengths clear. Regal Encore, his usual big run at Ascot, has joined Black Cotton, but they're only playing for second place. Vindication in great style with David Bass for the Kim Bailey stable as won.
And it is Paul Townend and Willie Mullins who are going to take it with Real Steel. Wins going away. Back in second is Secret Investor. Manila Fair is third.
Whereas Lost in Translation has Billy gone through the gears here. He's going to race on clear at the line to win with plenty in hand. Lost in Translation, a super comeback. He's won the Colin Parker Memorial Intermediate Chase.
But Brahma Bull still with the lead. Over towards the far side and clear of Expatriate and Daily Tiger, driven out by Brian Hayes. Brahma Bull will win the Paddy Power Home of the Money Back Special. They fight it out, well set up, drifting to the stand side, but still in front as they go to the line. Well set up, will win it for Ricky Doyle.
Given up as Janika idling slightly in front is driven out by Darryl Jacob, but Janika will give weight all round and win the Coral Holden Gold.
Atlanta Blaze lays down the challenge to Annie Angel, who's scrapping away over on the far side. Atlanta Blaze and Annie Angel, they race up towards the line. Atlanta
Nicely. Reserve Tank is going to be on the mark here. Reserve Tank, the favourite, goes on. Tizard's first win in the race. He may have a rising star in his running. Fusil Raffles from Grandson-Sea. Fusil Raffles, Grandson-Sea, making him work all the way, but Fusil Raffles good enough. Won the elite hurdle by 3 parts. Give me a copper traffic winner! A thundering finish! Give me a copper last.
It is Suren winning well the Fishery Lane hurdle for Luke Dempsey and Gordon. Punched home is Silas Emery and Paul Townend, kicking on from winning his beginners at the start of the year and has won very well indeed. 100 yards, it's Abacadabra, and Robbie Power, as they run up towards the finish, is more than up to the stiffer test of the Feruxian yards. It is Bacardi's putting up a personal best in the Lismullen hurdle as they run up to the finish, is coming further and further away for Paul Town and Willie Mullen's lead on the run up towards the finish from Atlutar and Hardline. Ballyosheen is back with a vengeance.
Fighting back, Santini idling. Now McGinty, Santini. From now McGinty, Santini has scrambled home.
It is Duvan and Paul Townend over the last, not the best of jumps, but it's good to see a good horse come back as Duvan strides on to win the Grade 2 Clonmel Shattered Love over and is bounding back to winning ways here in tremendous style.
Okay, so the video either did work or it didn't work, and you've either gone to my Facebook page and watched it, or you've just skipped and you don't want to watch it. But we're going to start talking horses now. So, Darryl, as I said, November gets me moist, I think is a fair word to say. It's so exciting. Good horses start to come out, and we talk about in October that we've learned through probably years of experience, I feel, that it's best to just try and calm yourself down. That's it. Keep calm and then focus about the fact that it is early season. But when you get to November, we're allowed to start getting excited and starting to dream. So again, I'm reiterating some of the stuff which was in the previous episode. I don't know if anyone's watching all of them, so I'll just say it again. We're not including every single race that happened in November for all the horses, because obviously it's impossible. There would have been some horses that appeared, whether it be novice chasers that ran well at the festival, big names, all those sorts of things. We'll try and go through some of the meetings, but we want to keep this fairly concise. So what's in this list is all the graded races, 1, 2 and 3 for GB and Ireland, and then some listed races, and then some selected other races. But we're only going to talk about the ones that get us going. As I say, we're going to keep it concise. If we've got time to mention other horses at the same meeting, we will do. For me, on this start of the list, we've got Langadan, Juvenile. Didn't think much of him at the time. I just pinned him down as a Skelton. Juvenile, not my cup of tea for being anything for big. Coeur Sublime hacked up in the Wicked Hurdle. Coeur Sublime can't breathe. He's just like Beakstown. So I was quite happy to say he's won. Well done to him. But just be careful with him. Daylight Katie won the Mares Novice Hurdle. You put us onto that at Chepstow. She ran really well, didn't she? A couple of handicap chases that I don't really feel like deserve a mention. The Diego de Charmille and the Guitar Pete victories, probably a bit rude to them. But Ballyoptic was a nice gutsy winner in the Charlie Hall chase. That was quite testing conditions those days, I thought. Ballyoptic ran quite well in that, but again, it's pinch of salt sort of thing in it. It's a 3-mile one, staying chase. Maybe he'd be, I don't know, not even a big handicap, but he wasn't something that I was getting too excited about. Gumball in the handicap at Ascot. It's one of them. I think he looks like he's well treated in a lot of races. He just emptied a bit and idled. I thought he's had his win. That was the time to be on him, and I was a little bit annoyed I didn't back him. I actually did back Nichols' horse in second, then Red Force 1, I think it was. And then that cost me a few quid as the season went on, but never mind. Ladies Button wins the Mares Hurdle at Wetherby. Shock horror, that's got to be a headline on it. Lady Button's just obviously always wins at Wetherby, so that was no surprise. And then we start getting on to the better action. So before I get too excited and start talking about the Grade 1 of the season, the first one we had, anything to recap on any of those?
No, not really. A lot of people got excited about Coeur Sublime, didn't they? They were right to really at the start of the season. He looked quite impressive. At the time, he looked like he could be a potentially useful horse. Obviously, breathing issues found him out a little bit later on. Daylight Katie's a useful horse going forward, but apart from that, these handicappers, Ballyoptic, I thought in that race actually, I thought Elegant Escape was the one to take out of it. Clattering so many fences and still getting as close as he did to Ballyoptic. Ballyoptic obviously went on and won since. They haven't rematched each other, but I'd have Elegant Escape to reverse the form next time they met. Diego de Charmel race, that was when he clattered through the fence with stablemate, was that right?
Oh yeah, with Cape Land, of course. Why have I not mentioned that?
Yeah. Unbelievable performance, that. How he managed to then pick up and still win inside that final furlong after the last. It was an unbelievable race.
And it was
and then they went out next time and look, the money was coming from Cape Land and reverse the form, and I thought there's no way on earth. How can he reverse the form with this horse that's just done that? And then lo and behold, Diego de Charmel was tailed off and Cape Land absolutely hosed up.
And They're from the same yard, aren't they? And I think because of the reviewed weights after that, because it was another handicap, like I fancied Capelin next time up. After that race, I think a lot of people thought, because of what happened to him and the fact that he wasn't able to regain his momentum, all that sort of stuff, he was the one for next time out. And he still went off at a reasonable price, I think, next time, or was at least available at a reasonable price next time out. But yeah, it was a bizarre race, wasn't it? And even after it happened, because there's quite a lot of distance after that final flight, Ascot to the finish line, I didn't really understand what was happening. Like, are they allowed to carry on racing? Did they get involved? Why was Capelin stopping, but Diego de Charmel could come back? It was just very, very crazy. I've never seen anything like it before. I don't think I'll see anything like it after. And it when you watch the replay back, I don't know if I caught enough of it in the clip, but the horse that's in front, the loose horse, is the one that when he veers, it catches Diego de Charmel's eye. And when you watch it back, you can see it's going to happen. Obviously, during the race, you didn't think it would, but it was mental, wasn't it? Just luckily, none of them got severely injured, because it could have ended up a lot worse, couldn't it?
It could have ended up a lot worse, but it was some spectacle.
So that's enough talking about handicaps, mate, because we've got the first grade one of the season in the Ladbrokes Champion Chase, and this. All right, I'm going to sound like an idiot now, but when we're talking about how it's. You know how we say about the beginning of the season, play things down, bits and pieces like that, and then because although like time-wise, I'm talking about this now, I'm looking forward to how I felt at the time. Being brutally honest about this, he beat Clandesobo, ran really well when he went over there. We know he goes right-handed, and I genuinely thought that Clandesobo was the one to take out of the race. I just thought he's travelling over there, he's obviously going over to Ireland. I know there's always debate about him, whether he needs the run at the start of the season, all that sort of stuff. But Clandesobo is not a horse that's going to have a string of ones next to his name. He's going to win when he's tuned up to win. He might need a bit more time to get together, all those bits and pieces. At the time, I thought, do you know what? He could potentially be a King George winner. But on the same weekend, we had another horse that goes and wins that then ended up becoming a King George one. And within, like, literally overnight, I just not forgot about Clandesobo, because obviously he won it the year before, but I forgot about thinking that he was a King George horse. And then as it got closer to the time of the actual King George, other horses had been in there. There was lots of other things that had been happening. I just look back and just think I should have got stuck into him then. And then even when it got to Cheltenham, to the King George, I could have looked back and said that's how I felt at the time, but I didn't. But anyway, it was a nice performance. There is one that Nichols has already said that he's going to send over for the Champion Chase this season, and I can't remember who it is. So that's pointless. That was
pointless information then, yeah. All the viewers are well thankful.
I'll dig it out, and then I'm sure I can put a box up somewhere on the YouTube thing to say who the horse is. But so Nichols has got one that comes over. Secret Investor he also sent over for that meeting to run in a novice chase. How did you feel about that Ladbrokes Champion Chase? Did you think that anything like I did, that Clandesobo was probably the one to take out, or did you just think that
the moment they Road to Respect crossed the line, that was the end of Clandesobo for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just was. I expected him to go and win that comfortably. I thought last season was really going to be the season that he came of age, and I thought he should be winning that, especially given like the likes of Delta Work were first time out, and Alfredosobo pretty much gone at the game at that sort of, over 3 miles at least. Anyway, I think it could be interesting in the national, but and then Road to Respect's absolutely trounced him.
I was hoping that Clandesobo would win, but I still thought that I could see him. I just thought I saw enough of him that day to say that he's clearly a good horse. And then, like you say, you mentioned Delta Work in there. We see lots of these novices that are then going into open company, how they just get found out. He was one that I just said Delta Work just bin him off after that.
Look, he in that race, he clattered everything, and he still kept going. And I know he was beating 15 lengths, but Christ, he kept up with him for the majority of the race, even though he was hitting everything in front of him. Yeah. And he would have desperately needed that run. I thought he was interesting going forward, if anything. But Clandesobo, I was so disappointed. I never backed him. I mean, I don't bet at those short prices very often at all. But I did back him there. I didn't back anything in the race. But obviously, it's an informative race, and I just weren't overly impressed with him at the time. But then, like the things like the King George comes around, and then the different sort of tracks come around back in the UK, and I thought, can he? But then I had to keep reminding myself that that day you had a feeling about him, so let it go, sort of thing. But it was a good. I mean, on paper, it's a really good race, and there's no disgrace finishing 4 lengths second. But I really thought he should have won that. Paul Nicholls doesn't really send any horses on their travels unless they are fully wound up. I remember when he sent Frodon up the Haydock, and he was at Wincanton, and he was in the parade ring. Frodon was going for the old Rowan Chase. Remember when they took all the fences out?
Yeah, it's a bumper.
Yeah, basically turned into a bumper, and he didn't know that they had taken more and more fences out, and he got the phone call. And I was stood next to him when he got the phone call in the parade ring. He was fuming. He was absolutely fuming that they had done that, because I think he really fancied him sending them all about the Haydock. So I don't think Paul Nicholls sends anything further than necessary unless he thinks he's got a fantastic chance of winning. So that all of that coupled up with Clandesobo, and the money came for him, and I was just disappointed on the day with him, really.
Yeah, true. I've just got Clandesobo down as one of those horses that, like, I think he needs everything to be right on his day to go and win, and he's not the best stay and chaser that's out there. I do just think he's a seriously good horse, but I just wonder with him whether he's difficult to get right, or maybe he's straightforward. I don't know, or whether he needs his racing or whatever it is. But it just like his race before he won the King George the season before, when he ran in the Betfair Chase, I was actually drawn to him in that race. And again, by the time we got through to the King George, I ended up jumping on the Wait and Patiently bandwagon the year before when he went and won, and he was a big price. And I actually, after that race, I thought to myself, I could be seeing him as a King George type horse, but never mind. It's one of those things that, because the action comes so thick and fast, and there's lots of other stuff to focus on the same weekends, you can sometimes get lost in everything that's going on, I think. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, he is a decent horse. I mean, that King George he won last year by 21 lengths, you can tear that form to pieces. Like, that's not worth anything, really. I know he's been given an RPR of 178, but it's honestly not worth anything. If you look at the horses that he's beaten, it was obviously only a 5-runner field. I mean, he's a half-decent horse, but like I say, Paul Nicholls sent something over to Ireland. You expect him to be straight for the race at least, wouldn't you? Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, look, in the King George, he beat Lost in Translation, who pulled up. Obviously, something went wrong there. He beat Surname, who doesn't stay 3 miles. Footpad, non-stayer, and then you got ASO, who for December. Yes, no, I'm just saying. In relation to that race, like, I was disappointed with him, and I think being able to tear apart the form of the King George last year, I think it boosted my confidence. The fact that I should have been disappointed in him at that day. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, that's fair. But again, this is the thing with the variety of opinions and why it's good, and especially in these sorts of graded races as well. The beauty is that people look at things differently than they. Like when we were at Chepstow with the reserve type thing, I almost get him from you now. It's that sort of thing, isn't it? You thought he was going to win, gets beat. There's only so much you can make an excuse for. Whereas I was with reserve tank, I was disappointed. With Clandesobo, it's one of those. It gets beat, and I expected him to win, but then I wasn't maybe too heartfelt with him. I wasn't too disappointed with getting beat. But anyhow, too much about Clandesobo and what could have been, because I didn't even fucking back him for the King George. Sorry for swearing. Same day at Down Royal, there was a decent horse that popped out. I don't know if you recognise his name or what you thought about him, but a horse called Envoy Alan made his hurdle I think. I've heard of him. I wasn't sure he was going to be any good, to be honest. I didn't think he was going to be much cop. I jest, of course. He hacked up, yeah. Again, it just looked at the start of the season there. The fact that they'd started him off in that particular race, people were talking about whether he was going to go Supreme or not. That more so this year than what it was like with Sam Crow before, when everyone was thinking that they would end up going Supreme with him. But they said at the start of the season, and Elliot's pretty good for this, that the Baddymore was the target, so no reason to think any otherwise for that. Real Steel also ran that same day at Down Royal. We know he's a horse that goes right-handed. He's a horse that I like a bit more now than I did at the start of the season, but his was a performance. It was a grade 2. He beat that Paul Nicholls horse that I mentioned, Secret Investor, that went over there. I don't really rate Secret Investor. For me, although he hacked up, I just thought fair play. It was his race to win. I didn't think much more of it than that at the time, I don't think. I know you say he goes left right-handed. I thought that at the start, as I was looking at the race as well. I thought definitely this horse is a right-handed
tracked horse, and that's it really. No good for Cheltenham. But I'll tell you what, looking back now, he ran a blind and finished 6th in the Gold Cup.
We've got to come on to it in March, haven't we?
Just saying.
No, I know, but yeah, I agree, and we will come on to that when we get to the festivity bits. But yeah, at that point, I still just had him down as a right-hand merchant, and because I felt like he was that way, and he bolted up, I just thought it's ideal conditions. That's why he's won so far.
Yeah, I had the exact same opinion at the time.
Sorry, there was a couple of other races on that particular day as well. So this is what I mean about November. We were only on the 2nd of November, and there's just loads of stuff to talk about. Vindication won the Sodexo Gold Cup at Ascot. His jump at the last, which will be, I don't know if I kept the jump in the video or not, but his jump at the last was ridiculous considering it was a 3-mile chase and he jumped it like it was his first fence in the race. It was unreal. Was a very, very good performance. How did you think about it? So I know you were quite on him that day, weren't you?
Yeah, I was on him big time that day. Really, really fancied him for that. Really, really liked him. Stuck him up after that for the Gold Cup 51 as an outside each way bet. Obviously, it looks a bit silly now considering he ran in the ultimate handicap. But the reason I stuck him up was because I knew he's going to have far too much weight on his back for a handicap at Cheltenham, and I thought the hustle and bustle of Gold Cup, he could just sort of sit out wide a little bit. And I thought it would really suit him. Sorry, not the hustle, but the less runners in the Gold Cup would suit him. He had when he's run at Cheltenham before, there's a fence free from home, and he's made a mistake. He made a mistake at the JLT, and he did the same in the Ultimate. But I thought if he went for the Gold Cup at the time, I thought that he would just have a little bit more room, and he might just be able to clear that fence a little bit better, as opposed to being in a big field handicap under pressure at that fence, because I know he's made the mistake twice. It's the downhill fence before they swing in for the turn for home, and it's a very pivotal fence in the race. It's exactly where the pace starts to quicken on that downhill run. So I just thought in the Gold Cup he might have a little bit more room, and he might just have an each way squeak, if you take extra places or whatnot. But wasn't to be. They did hint at that. I was thinking about going for it, but changed their mind last minute.
Some of the any race markets can be quite good. Now, I don't know what price he was. He probably would have been like 16s any race. So then you're losing all the value of the point of the bet, and then you obviously don't do it. But sometimes it's worth having a little look about in it, just in case. Anywho, enough about Gold Cup tips. The following day, I mean, there's loads of action that's happened this particular weekend, but we're already 20 minutes in. I think we've got to just try and roll through as best we can. Lost in translation. So where I was talking about the fact that I thought Clandesobo got beat, okay, but I'm quite impressed. I think he could still go and win the King George. Lost in translation does what he does in that Colin Parker Memorial Intermediate Chase. The commentator, I can't remember his name, but just adds all the fuel to the fire. Talk about, it's another splendid jump. He's made it. He's done it all in splendid isolation, all this sort of stuff. They're saying all the right things. We all know it was a good performance, but when everyone says that and then the post-race reaction, everyone gets excited, it's quite easy to maybe play it up a bit. And I don't think we obviously didn't see the right him in the King George, but Jesus, that was a very, very impressive performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, Well, first time up at Carlisle, over 2.5. He was foot perfect. He was outstanding. Those fences are very easy at Carlisle. And at the time, there was a lot of people going around saying, he's never going to win a Gold Cup if he jumps that exuberantly. But you got to remember, like, fences at these courses are like they're different difficulties. I know it sounds a bit silly, but Carlisle fences are one of the easiest fences to jump in the country. So
you could do big, shouldn't you?
Pinged them. And it's probably the fact that the fence is so easy, probably the fact that it over-exaggerated how high he was going over his fences. But it was a really impressive performance. I mean, Count Meribel was closing when he meant to finish, but you just knew another squeeze and he would have gone on again. I really liked that. I got really excited by that performance. And just knew, and the reason I got really excited about it, because I just knew that last year, or the run before at Aintree, when he beat top of the game, I just knew that he had improved for that 3 miles. Yeah. So doing that on seasonal return over 2.5 was fantastic, because I knew there was more to come at 3 miles. So I started to get really excited for his next few runs and the Gold Cup going forward. But he was cut very quickly after that race. I'm thinking to about 7 or 8 to 1. I think I'm not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think the double figure I think had gone about him then, or there might a little bit about, and then it might have changed when he went to Haydock. But it was definitely one of those performances where I think there would be very few people that wouldn't think that he was a Betfair Chase winner, probably a King George winner, and probably a genuine Gold Cup contender, just off the back of an intermediate chase, like you say, beating Count Merivale. But it was a very good performance, wasn't it? And it was, like you say, he's going to be better for the trip, all those bits and things. Yeah, it was at that time he looked like he was the one, didn't he? And that's, like I say, that's when Clandesobo started to disappear out the back of my head, and I got in the Lost in Translation bubble. And then I think because I missed a bit of price for him anti-post, I was maybe kind of hoping at Haydock he wouldn't run as well as he did. But hey ho, that's for another episode. So there's plenty of other action in here, as I say. Keen not to rush it because we want to get stuff covered, but also keen not to waffle about ones that don't need to be waffled in there. There was a novice chase at Cork. Brahma Ball running that. I think Sayo was in the race. I think Brian Hayes rode Brahma Ball. It ended up being a race where Sayo didn't finish, I don't think. I think he pulled up. We know now that he's not a very prolific winner. It looked like it could have been an okay-ish race, but pants, grade 3, to probably ignore it. Well set up, was quite good in the novice hurdle. But again, it's very, very far out for thinking Cheltenham targets, especially when you look at a 3-mile hurdler. I like the 2-mile angle into the Albert Bartlett horses that start off with a shorter trip and they run close to the festival. So nice enough performance, but couldn't get too excited. However, Howden Gold Cup, I don't know what day of the week it was. Was it a Wednesday or Tuesday or wherever it was? Thursday maybe, yeah. Janica won the Howden Gold Cup. It was a decent weight carrying performance. I went through the result after looking at the horses that have won that, where they might go. Bit torn with whether it's going to end up being Champion Chase or going to be Ryanair. I just thought they probably would have been going down the route of a Ryanair, and I did fancy him for the Ryanair off the back of that, but unfortunately we know how the rest of the season panned out for him. Probably wasn't supposed to be, but it was a decent weight carrying performance, I thought, and I just thought he beat a reasonable field. I think he was giving weight away. I was quite taken by it. Did you have any views on it? Did you feel the same?
No, I did have a massive. I was impressed by it at the time. Carrying 11-10 against those, it was a really useful performance. I've got a little bit of a thing with Janica because I backed him the year before the festival when he just couldn't mow down Saidulak for the second time. I think I think he beat him the first time, and both times at Cheltenham, one at the festival, the second time he just couldn't get there 3/4 of a length down. So I had a little bit of a thing. I've got a little bit of a thing where I don't really back him now, but I thought it was a decent performance at the time, and I thought he was for sure going to be a Ryanair horse going forward.
It was top weight off of 162 official rating. That's like, regardless of how it's like what the horses are in there, like Layla's in their pants in it, Godzone 11, Charbel was making mistakes, was never at the races that day. But I still think it was a good enough field and off of that weight and all those sort of things. Probably now looking back in hindsight, maybe that was sort of an early season target. But anywho, I was quite impressed with Yannick at that point. So maybe this time round, if the Howden Gold Cup comes out of a decent weight carrying performance, maybe just calm down a bit, Dave, I reckon. Then we're on to the weekend after that. So Wincanton, was this year or last season, was that your first season doing Wincanton?
Yeah, it was my first season there last season, yeah.
So you were treated to an absolute beauty of a was it a couple of days for that meeting, the Elite Hurdle meeting, or was it just one day?
No, it's just one day, I think.
Because there was a few races in there that were decent. So we mentioned Reserve Tank the last time round. I think we talked about him plenty. I don't know if I've cropped it out and chopped it down, but to be honest with you, however long we've got it in there, even if it seems like it's too long, we could have gone on for longer about him. He obviously did go and win in the Rising Stars Novices Chase. I thought it was an okay-ish one, so I'll let you more talk about him. Fusio Raffles in the Elite Hurdle, I was actually quite impressed with how he battled back to Grand Sancy. He was getting weight that day, but I just thought, do you know what? He actually ran pretty well for me. He's only the 4-year-old going into like his elders. We know sometimes they don't necessarily, for whatever reason, do well in the season after. But I just thought, Fusio Raffles ran well enough for me to think potentially he could end up being interested in the Champion Hurdle. And then give me a copper winning the Badgers Beer Silver Trophy. Give me a copper, finally won a race. Up every time for about 30 years. If he hadn't have had his injuries, I do think this horse could have been something quite good, but was just quite nice to see him win. Anyhow, I've talked too much. Wincanton's your backyard.
Yeah, Reserve Tank winning that, it was just a poor race. That's all it was, really. The Elite Hurdle, I was really, really keen on Grand Sancy for this. I've tipped this horse up in the paper and was it in the paper then? Not sure. Might have been on my column. But I tipped him up on the day in the boxes. Grand Santini, I thought he had the race won until he clattered the last. Gave Raffles just a chance to get back on top. Yeah, it was a good performance for Fusi Raffles, but I think that was the moment for me where I knew that is not a champion hurdle horse. You know, I know that, you know, Nicky Henderson at the time was saying that Fusi Raffles had only been training for the last couple of weeks, and missed time and this, that, and the other. So a lot of people hoped up the performance, but you got to remember, Grand Santini was giving him £3 that day.
Exactly.
You know, and regardless if you're a champion hurdle horse, you get things done, you get the job done. And I know they got the job done, but it was because I felt that Grand Santini made a mistake at that last. Give Me a Copper was really impressive. And I'll remember this because I met Alex Ferguson that day in the parade ring. Wow, I just couldn't believe he was there. Like, I was got a shot of me on TV walking side by side with him.
Awesome.
Yeah, the fact that he was there should have been a tip in itself, really. You know, Alex Ferguson down at Wincanton to watch Give Me a Copper, who just gets home from Super Soups.
Yeah,
fantastic race. Really good day out. And people should get down at Wincanton, honestly, for that Badge Beers day, because it's really, really good.
Yeah, so there was another race at Wincanton as well. That this was one that definitely panned out nicely as the season went on, and I think we both latched onto the same line with it. Was Edwardstone and Fiddler on the roof run against each other, didn't they? And then there was a few races that happened after the season where that Edwardstone ran in a race at Ascot, didn't it? I think it was the same day Fiddler on the roof ran at Sandown. And there was just all these bits and pieces where the form between that pair tied in. But
oh, what a good race that was!
It was a big race, wasn't it?
This is one of the times that I've backed short price horse. I could not have Fiddler on the roof beat. I was in the parade ring, taking a few clients in there from the boxes to go and see the horses parade round. But I tell you what, when Edwardstone walked round, Christ, honestly, he was a beast. This horse was an absolute beast. And then I went out on the track and they came round and they trotted past. You just know when the horse trots past you just know it's a bit of a machine. And honestly, he's a very good horse, I think, going forward. I know he was well beaten in the Supreme, but I wouldn't let that put you off him going forward. This is an absolute beast, and to do that after a 244 day layoff on his hurdle debut was impressive.
Yeah. And there's no doubt in there. Obviously, Fiddler on the Roof's gone on won nice races after, and is a nice horse, all that sort of stuff. But I feel like, again, we're looking at this at the time that it was.
Yeah. At the time of this race, I was fuming. I was absolutely fuming that Fiddler on the Roof had got beaten in.
And I was a bit sceptical.
I was fuming.
Yeah, and I ended up being a bit sceptical with it because I started to think, well, hang on a minute. I mean, Fiddler on the Roof should have won the race.
Yeah.
And then, like I say, how it panned out in the weeks after. But this is where sometimes, like, you have to trust the initial gut instinct of things, don't you? And like we know, like you said, Edwardstone is going to end up being a nice horse in it, but there was probably signs enough at the beginning of the season that if this horse was going to turn into like one of the best of the British crop, I mean, he might still be one of the best of the rest away from the actual winner of the Supreme. But you get that hint early in the season. If you've got a horse that's 4 to 6 to be winning a race like that on a Saturday afternoon at Wincanton after having a run and it gets beat, regardless of who's beating it, it might just be that the pair aren't as good as maybe they were.
That's exactly right. And at the time, it was almost like it was a bit baffling that he had been beaten. And then going forward, I kind of had my doubts about him already because even though they were touting him for the Supreme and for the Ballymore or whatever, I just kind of thought Ballymore Supreme horses don't get beaten at odds on at Wincanton.
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't happen. So you can sort of let it go a little bit and follow him through and and perhaps it was just an off day. But then you've got to look at the fact that he then goes and wins by 8 lengths, 12 lengths at Sandown, and you sort of think to yourself, well, he's even been beaten by a very, very good horse in Edwardstone. But then you look at the 244 day layoff, hurdle debut, etc. It just doesn't happen, does it?
And so, I think with a lot of it, you have to, like, it is really hard. But I feel like if you start getting doubts when we're talking about this, like looking for end of season targets, like we mentioned at Envoy Lana's debut at the beginning of this month as well. They just win, don't they? We get these horses that should be winning at the festival, like longer term. I'm not saying they can't be beaten during the season, but when this sort of stuff's happening early, like you say, on a Saturday at Wincanton and they're getting beat, although they're going to go out and they might win races after, and it isn't all about Cheltenham, there's betting opportunities throughout the whole year as well. You do need to be mindful of that initial thought. And because the racing comes so thick and fast, like I did with Clandesobo, it's quite easy to have an initial thought, and then the next time round you almost forget about it and you give them a second chance, and then you give them a third chance. But hey-ho, that's the way it is. However, that was decent at Wincanton, to be fair to it. That's a meeting that I agree people should be getting to. But over in Ireland, Silas Emery, he would have won the Arkle had he have made it there. Silas Emery, I was thinking to myself, do you know what? There's all this talk about Altior, what trip he's going to go at. And I did still fancy Altior for the champion chase. Thought 9-2 is a ridiculous price. He's still the one to be backing. But I'd like I say, I thought Silas Emery would have been the Arkle winner the year before. I thought this was like a race where he should be winning it. It's 2 miles, almost sort of maybe not announcing himself on the scene as being like an absolute legend, but I felt like this was maybe like a bit of a coming of age sort of race for him. And I was really impressed with him. And at that point, I was thinking, do you know what? He's definitely well worthy of a bit of a play for the champion chase, given we didn't know where everyone else was going to be going. I was just taken by him. I thought it was decent.
Yeah, I agree. I did as well. He's a weird horse, Silas Emery, but he had the sort of right level of form, didn't he, prior to that? And on that day, it was just a very good performance. It was very difficult to pick holes in it. I was slightly concerned that he might be a bit slow.
Yeah.
But apart from that, it was a pretty useful performance. He made a few mistakes, but he probably didn't beat nothing. I don't know. I've always been a little bit confused by it, and I still am now. What you're seeing now is basically my reaction at the time. I'm a bit confused by him. I don't know if he is hiding an unlimited amount of talent.
Yes.
Or he's been very well placed.
But again, it's one of them that he's a horse that I backed for the Arkle the year before. I fancied him for that. Obviously, didn't make it to the festival, so I'm still already latched onto him. Just excited to see him come back out. So my opinion of him is probably already a lot higher than what yours is. So when he goes and wins that, I'm saying bread and butter. He's gone and won it nicely. Whereas you're probably looking at it more truly in the fact that he was entitled to go and win like he did. But anyhow, at that point I thought Silas Emery is a genuine lively outside for the champion chase. And
he was so far up his arse.
Then there was the same day at Naas. I mean, we've got the Fishery Lane hurdle that Surin won. I'll pull up the rest of the meeting just for the sake of doing it. We're up to closing on 40 minutes, but we're getting towards the end of it now. If this needs to end up being an hour episode, 50 minutes, whatever it is, I think it's worth it because we've got some nice types coming up. I'll just check the rest of this card because I've got a feeling there was some more stuff going on. But yeah, so Surin wins the Fishery Lane hurdle. It's a race that you can go back and you can look at the previous winners of it. It's not necessarily a bad race. It just can sometimes be a bit confusing with the depth and stuff that's in there. But it was an impressive win by Surin. I didn't really know what to make of it. I just thought I'd probably play quite a few of them down. But that was the same day that there was a maiden hurdle debut for Blackbow, obviously one that was fancied for the bumper before. Willie Mullins had talked about it loads. I know that Patrick Mullins had been really keen on him before, and he actually got turned over by Embittered. I just looked at that. The first few were pulled well clear of everybody else, and I just thought to myself, right, Blackbow and Embittered, they're just not good enough to be players in the division, I thought. So Elixir Dene, that's another one that won a maiden hurdle. Longhouse Poet was in there. Column of Fire was further back. So Elixir Dene looks fairly good that day as well. It wasn't exactly a wide margin victory. It was only a couple of lengths over Longhouse Poet, but I think the pair of those looked like they were going to be quite good. Tornado Flyer won his beginner's chase. Tornado Flyer is another horse that I quite like. He didn't win very far. I should have probably realised very early at that point in the season that if he's going to win a race and he wins it like that against those types of horses, he's just not really very good. But
there's definitely a theme here. So something I always say, if a horse wins by a wide margin, always question the performance. Always question it.
Absolutely. But that was it. So that was it for Naas. So there was a couple of other bits in there, Blackbow, all those sort of things. I think they were at the time races. We would have been excited to see the horses go in there, but I think for the weekend for the Irish stuff there, Silas Emery was the one that I took out of it for that particular day. But then on the Sunday of the meeting, we had Abacadabras made his hurdle debut in the four auction novice hurdle. That was it wasn't his hurdle debut. I think he'd already run before. I tell a lie. That was the grade 3 event. Now, Abacadabras was one for the bump of the year before when he ran out behind Envoy Lan. I thought to myself, do you know what? He is like a really decent horse. I don't think there was probably really any disputing about that. The horse that I took out of this race more than anything is actually the horse that I backed in the race stupidly, was Latest Exhibition. So Latest Exhibition, I know is a decent horse. When Abacadabras beat him by 3 lengths, I thought, do you know what? Fair play to Abacadabras. I think he actually probably is very good. When I say very good, I still just didn't pitch him as being like a Grade 1 winner. Proved me wrong later in the season. But Latest Exhibition was one that I sort of took out of that because he would look like he was crying out for a step up in trip. But that was what's exciting about these, like the Grade 3s for horses that are well established, that have had lots of running, lots of experience. I think you're looking at, they're running in Grade 3s because they're just not good enough to be winning the other races. When you get Grade 3s and Grade 2s for novices, it's a stepping stone for lots of these horses, and I definitely think there's some that you can pick out of it. So Latest Exhibition was one that I took out a bit more than Abacadabras, probably because of the fact that I don't like Gigginstown 2 milers, so I just couldn't get excited about Abacadabras, I don't think. But he'd already hacked up in a maiden hurdle. He won nicely enough, didn't he? But again, I was marred with the fact that I don't like Gigginstown 2 milers, so I think I was being overcritical. What did you make of that race? Do you remember it?
I really liked Latest Exhibition going forward. Thought he was definitely running over the wrong trip that day. And I thought he's a beautiful looking horse, and I just thought that he had a bit about him. Going forward, obviously there was nothing much sorting behind Fast Buck, 145 rated, but I thought the front two were pretty useful. I was a little bit suspicious of Abacadabras for much of last season. Didn't think he finished out his races as strongly as a lot of other horses did. I thought he was sort of one of those horses that likes to chase horses rather than being in front.
I thought
I couldn't really have him going forward, even though he ran here. Won here, but even when he won here, he only won by 3 lengths. And is that because, I started to think, is that because, he doesn't want to be in front too long? Because last year in the Champion Bumper, I should say, that the reason I thought that is because last year in the Champion Bumper, he wanted to be the front, didn't he? But, yeah, Latest Exhibition was one I was going to take out of the race going forward, but only if he was up in trip.
Yeah.
Abacadabras went down in the notebook as one to watch with a suspicious mind, if you like.
Yeah, and I think that's where it sounds like we both looked at the race the same. To be honest with you, especially when it gets to the beginning of the season, and especially when you're working at race courses, like we'll catch up every now and again, but we just get on with it, didn't we? And then we'll catch up when we get the chance to catch up. So I know for a fact we didn't talk much about this particular weekend, but I think maybe because we both looked at Latest Exhibition running at the wrong trip, we've probably downplayed Abacadabras' performance because we're thinking it's beating a stayer, isn't it? But maybe that's what's in there. But obviously, season panned out, I didn't get that right early on. But I mean, Latest Exhibition did all right after. Anywho, still at Navan. This was when I did a first little video for ones to watch, telling people horses that I fancy for the weekend, ones that I was going to back, give them a review of the races. And I super napped Ballyasheen.
At the moment, Ballyasheen took this race last year and absolutely bolted up. Be madness if he wasn't favourite. I think odds against would be fair. And like I said, we might get a bit of a price about him, but enough about that, and you can tell which ones I like, can't you?
And I did like a couple more of these ones to watch after, but no one bothered to watch it, so I thought, do you know what? Bollocks to you. I'll do the write-up. You can read it in there if you want. But anyway, Ballyasheen, running the Fortria Chase. He loves Navan. He loves this race. Plutard was in there, so we were getting a price. It was just like there was no way Ballyasheen was going to get beat in this. Like, it's obscene. And the bookies priced him up at 9-2. I had him chalked as like a 6-4 poke. So when you get these sort of bets, I mean, they don't obviously always play out, but.
Oh, you emptied your wallet, didn't you? Tell the truth. You emptied your wallet on him, didn't you?
I didn't, to be fair. I stay fairly disciplined to a point. Like, every now and again, I'll have a bit of a wobble, but I stay fairly disciplined. I had a reasonable bet on him, but I didn't have more than I should have done given the price differential of what I priced him up as. But he was giving weight away to a Plutard, all those bits and pieces. Could kind of see why it was going in there, but we know a Plutard's not a 2-miler, so I just didn't like it. And we know that he likes it in Navan. He won the race the year before. He hacked up in it. But the thing with that is I knew that was it. That's Ballyasheen. He's going to win that race. Don't worry about him for anything else.
Yeah.
And I was very happy with that. And it was the same day there as well where Apple's Jade started to fall bad. The apples came off the cart. The Cardis slooshed up against Apple's Jade, and he hacked up, didn't he?
Yeah, I thought Stayer's Hurdle, Bacardi's Certainty. That's what I thought this day. I thought get him up to 3 miles. I loved it. Loved the performance. Got excited about him. Then, as it perspires, he's the most untrustworthy horse you could ever have.
Yeah, he's definitely a hard one to catch right, isn't he? And that's the problem with a lot of this stuff, that that is a decent race. We know it is. Beating Apple's Jade, regardless of what she's like, we know that she can be a bit in and out, don't we? But the performance looked enough like.
Yeah, I think that race.
It wasn't like Apple's Jade was completely off the ball. She just wasn't at her best, but it was a good performance, wasn't it?
I think that race is a bit different to a lot of other races. I think that's a bit of a tripwire race, really, because he's just never replicated that performance again, has he? Right. And he had conditions to do so. It's just, I mean, there was nothing really wrong with that race. Magic of Light was back in third. Like she's an half decent.
Yeah, and she was a long way back, wasn't she? And
she was a long way back. So it's not like it was a fluke performance, or you can crab the form. Obviously, Apple's Jade going forward now, we know what we know. But at the time, you know, there's no reason for you not to really trust that. On the same card as well as when Andy Dufresne bolted up.
Oh yes,
beat Cobbler's Way by 11 lengths, and everyone, including myself, really thought he was going to be another Envoy Allen, if you like, going forward. Yeah. Definitely a festival target for him. But it was a very, very impressive performance. And again, there was no reason not to believe it. Cobbler's Way is a half decent horse. We had him on tracker at the time. I didn't back anything in the race, but it was one of those races that you had to watch because of the hype around Andy Dufresne. You just had to watch whatever you were doing. You had to go and watch it, and it was really impressive. It's a shame about that horse because he's got some talent. He might come good yet. You don't know, but
absolutely. And it was a tricky one that day as well, because I think with the fact that the Grade 3 hurdle was on the same day, and we see Abacadabras go and do it, it's like slightly overshadows when a horse does that in a maiden hurdle, because people will poo-poo it and just say, well, if he was that good, he could have been in the Grade 3 or bits and pieces like that, or just because it's a maiden hurdle. But I trusted that was a fairly decent performance to the eye first time out. I thought he looked like he was quite good. There was the bumper as well that day at Navan. Energamine was one that I fancied for the actual champion bumper a long time out. Before that, he went and got beat. I don't know. I can't remember whether it was weak or not, what price he opened up the night before, but I was just disappointed with that. And sometimes, like the bumper horses that are going to go and win at the festival, they normally are appearing later in the season, bits and pieces like that. But I was slightly underwhelmed with that. But it'll be the same this season. There'll be early in the season. There'll be some nice named bumper horses in there. They just might not be as good as we think, or they might have had some niggles or something. But on to a horse that has had niggles, and a horse that is an absolute weapon. Oh, mate, like watching this was just. This is probably as enjoyable as watching Baliasheen go and win when I had a load of money on, because it's Duvan in it. And we've already mentioned in this episode how I got a bit steered into Yannicka. Before Duvan ran in this race, I backed Duvan for the Ryanair. And then he went and absolutely hacked up. I can't remember what price he was the night before, but I'm sure he must have been a reasonable price. I think I got 5 to 2 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. Maybe I'm exaggerating. I know he was odds against on the day, and then they backed him. But we got a stupid price about Duvan. He was running against Jet that we mentioned before, and I know that you gave him that coming back against the old horse and stuff like that. We didn't like Monolith, did we? Just don't like Monolith, full stop. But oh man, even all of that sort of stuff. How good was it to watch Duvan hack up? And what did you think after?
Oh, I thought he's back. I thought he is back. I have always been out of your camp the whole time, but I thought that I was being clever at this point after this race, because I backed him and put him up for the champion chase, because he was something like 16 to 1 after this race for the champion chase. And after the race, Willie Mullins did an interview and said it's good to get him back. It's nice to see him stay the 2.5, but most likely looking forward to going back to 2 miles.
Yeah.
And I thought, Christ, thought if they keep him sound, I thought, especially after, Altior, that was after Altior's defeat, wasn't it?
No.
Was it before?
This is before, because we'll come on to that.
Oh, no, sorry, it's because they were. That was it. It was because they were thinking about stepping Altior up in trip. That was it. And I thought, with no Altior there, I thought Duvan 16-1. I thought is an absolute gift if they keep him down.
But you didn't
just such exciting performance, impressive performance. It was good to see him back. It was heartwarming to see him back. Like, I know I'm going a bit OTT here, but I loved it. I really loved it.
Good, wasn't it? Because I backed him before the race for the Ryanair, and then, like you say, the comments after suggested that they were more likely to go down the bloody champion chase route. But obviously, it's fact of getting him fit, all that sort of stuff. So I think even though I was on a nice ticket, it went down to like 9-2 favourite, I think, for the Ryanair after that. Felt like I was a bit bad. But that's where the joys of Bet365 come in, because you get 95% cash out. I managed to cash out of his Ryanair bet when they were talking more about the champion hurdle nearer the time, champion chase nearer the time. But anywho, that's just the way that sort of panned out. This is something now, knowing what we know now. When we knew Shackle Poursoir was going to be a reeky horse for the champion chase. We know Willie Mullin wants to win the champion chase. We know that Willie Mullin said after this race that Duvan will probably be going back in trip. So it sounds like they were the two army for the champion chase. Why did we not start thinking about lumping Min for the Ryanair? Signs were there that he was finally going to go in the trip, but never mind. And then Shattered Love won a mare's chase. We've touched on her before, didn't we? She ran in a race the previous month. Just that's her level of ability. Gordon Elliott still thinks she's a Gold Cup winner, but he's wrong, simply.
Last one to probably touch on is Santini, Sandown reappearance.
Oh yes, we have completely skipped.
Yeah, won by a head, beating now McGinty.
That's
terrible performance.
Let me have it. That one there, I felt like. I don't know why, but I just felt like I was quite happy to forgive him the performance, because I cannot understand how a boat like Santini would like Sandown.
Do you know what though? I writ him straight off after that. I did. I writ him straight off. I've never been a massive fan of the horse anyway. As you know, I was Delta work in the RSA last year.
Yeah.
But I just always thought he was just slow, and I thought a potential Gold Cup winner has just beaten Now McGinty by a head, 144 rated horse. Yeah. All right, return, but that is not surely not. And I remember at the time a lot of people were deflated with the performance as well. Yeah. A lot of people were making excuses for him. He was 1-3 favourite. He's given £6 away, but Christ, he's rated another at least £10 clear of that. Yeah.
I just thought. It's obviously easy to sit in now and say it because obviously you know what he's done after, but genuinely after the race I just thought obviously you'd expect him to go and win by a little bit more, but when he got beat in the RSA, I mean it's painful, isn't it, when we think back of it, watching that RSA when top of the game just went by, didn't it? But I felt like Santini was a little bit of a bottle job that day, to be honest, and then I in the boat camp sort of thing, whether he would battle all those bits and pieces, but the fact that he at one point, I thought he was going to get beat by Now McGinty. The fact that he still rallied to win it, and like I said, I cannot see how this horse would like Sandown personally. I just thought, you know what? Obviously, he should have won better than that, but fuck it, have it. But
they tinkered with his wind after that, didn't they? So it looks like he was fired up a little bit at the finish, didn't it? They tinkered with his wind after that, and God, I gave this horse so much stick last year. So much stick, didn't I?
You do feel a bit like, right, I've got to make a judgment on this horse, and that's it. Move on. Think about other horses now, didn't you?
Yeah, you just got to learn. That's why reviewing things is so good, because you just got to learn from what you did last year. And obviously we're learning all the time, as everybody is. So it's a good thing to do. It's just worth knowing what happened last year, so you don't make the same mistakes. But let's get on to the last half of November.
Beautiful. So I'll put a link up to the video, like I said before, if it wasn't already in the start of it. I'll put a link up to the previous video in here, probably somewhere. I'm going to try and do some YouTube-y stuff. But we will be back for the second part of November in episode 3. So see you soon.